Okay, let's go. Let's start talking cookies and how you can grow your business without them. This webinar is meant to help you all understand the issues we are facing currently in tracking and that are waiting for us in the future, and how you can tackle them. So it's going to be a webinar where I and my colleague Bob will help you face these challenges and provide some solutions that you can work with. Before we start, a few simple house rules. So there's this meeting will last about 50 minutes, the presentation. After that, we will have hopefully some time for Q&A. There's somebody monitoring the chat, Max. If you have a question, you can pop it in the chat. Max will see it and inform us about your question. Please don't hesitate to ask anything you want. Please don't use your phone. That's not necessary. We will be recording this webinar and also share the recording and the slides afterwards with you. So that's it for now. Let's kick it off by first of all telling a bit about Sprinter Sneakers for who doesn't know us. We're a growth hacking agency based in Amsterdam, roughly with 40 people. And we're a proud B Corp. And why? Because we have a mission in life, and that is to grow companies while enjoying life and making the world a better place. And that's what we try to do as much as we can for the partners we work with and the team that we have. I assume everybody knows what growth hacking is all about. But in short, we experiment a lot to get things done. Some of the partners we work with, from small SME companies to large corporations, but all companies that try to make the world a better place, and we try to support them as much as we can. So today is about how to survive the cookie apocalypse. And it's an apocalypse that is waiting for us. And it means that we have to take action, and you as an advertiser or as an other agency have to take action as well. But first, back to the basics, a bit of theory. What were those cookies again? So a lot of people, I think, know what cookies are, but you hear a lot about first-party data, third-party data, where these cookies come in. So basically, a cookie is a small text file. It contains an ID and is bound to a domain. So if you would visit the Dutch website like nu.nl, or you would go to Google, the cookies that are set can only be read by the Google domain. At least that's how it should work. There's two types of cookies. First party, that means the cookie is set by the website that you visit. And these are, for example, used for storing data in your shopping cart, preferences that you have for languages or other settings. Identification, they contain an ID, so you as a user are identified by it, and they are used for analytics purposes. And we have the third-party cookies. And this is where all the rumors and the trouble starts. These are cookies that are actually set by another domain than the website you are visiting. And basically the whole digital industry and the advertising industry used to be based on this. No more. So third-party cookies are no longer there. Why? There's a lot of stuff going on on the technical side. So Apple, Firefox, main browsers are blocking third-party cookies. And we've got all the privacy legislation kicking in at 2018. GDPR came to life in European Union. And from there on, more and more privacy legislation and technical limitations are being implemented that cause us to have issues with collecting data and doing digital marketing with the way you used to do it. There's nothing to do about it. It's actually, in our opinion, also a good thing. The digital marketing world used to be a bit of a Wild Wild West show where you could do anything with data, collect as much as you can without any consent or information that you had to provide to the user. So there's a new situation where we have to deal with. Privacy is never going to go away anymore. And it means we need to come up with solutions that embrace privacy, respect the user's privacy, but still enable us to collect data and be data-driven. What all these legislations and these limitations actually do, third-party cookies are completely out already for a while, except in Google Chrome, but they announced they are going to do it as well. And first-party data, first-party cookies, are actually also limited, especially if they are used for identification analytics purposes, meaning the lifetime of a cookie is limited. Question for you. So where do you find these cookies? I think most people might know, but in case you don't know, cookies live in your browser. They are, besides bound to a certain domain, also browser specific. And if you look at Google and, for example, you visit a Coolblue website, a Dutch retailer for electronics, you see all the cookies that are set there. And for those that still think maybe Google is not gonna kill the third-party cookie, well, right now they actually warn this. You see some of the cookies there with a little orange triangle in front. It says these cookies will no longer be available later this year. And what you then get is that Google Chrome, which is the largest browser at this moment with 60% of market share roughly, will be similar as the 40% that Safari users currently are. And there you see only first-party cookies. So all the cookies are bound to the Coolblue domain and no longer to any third-party domain. So what does this mean actually? So it's a bit of a technical issue, of course. What does it actually mean on a daily basis for your work? You will lose data. A lot of data, up to 80% if you don't take action to start working in a different way and start measuring in a different way. And with that, if you lose the data, you lose a lot of your data-driven functionalities, meaning you can't measure performance everywhere, you can't work with audiences, creating a personalized customer experience, which is sort of mandatory nowadays to boost your conversions. Is very hard. Attribution is going to be harder, and retargeting is actually completely impossible. Meaning your display campaigns or some of the other media that you're currently running won't be as effective anymore as they used to be. Fortunately, there are solutions, not to everything, not to all the issues. There also will never be a solution to all the issues. But there are solutions that you can implement now to solve some of these challenges that we are facing. But you need to take action now because the clock is ticking. As you could see in the timeline, basically from 2017 on, we are losing data. And if you have not been taking any action since then, you're already losing for 30–40% of your data since that moment, meaning your campaigns are less effective. With Google Chrome announcing they're also going to kill the third-party cookie, it's really time to act now. And what are these solutions? So this is the main focus of what we want to discuss with you guys. Very simple. There are 4 solutions that we want to highlight for you. First of all, implement server-side tracking. What is that? Server-side tracking means that you're gonna turn your third-party cookies basically in first-party cookies. You lose some functionality there, but it means that all your cookies will be set from the domain that you own. With that, you gain quite a lot of data back again. Not all of it, but enough to send more data back to the algorithms of like Google and Facebook. It also offers you a possibility to share more sensitive data like personal identification data like email addresses or phone numbers with these platforms in a secure way. And that means you can have a better integration with these platforms so they can better optimize your campaigns with their algorithms. How can you describe it in a certain way? If I would think like a synonym, how to describe this. Let's say you go to a supermarket and you want to buy the more expensive brands, and they're not allowed anymore because they're too expensive. Suddenly, the same stuff is available in the own brand of a supermarket, meaning it becomes available again. Maybe not as good, maybe not as cool, but you can still work with it. Question for you guys, you can type it in the chat if you want. Who has already have server-side tracking implemented and is sort of ready to go? Not that many people yet. It's actually not that hard to implement it. We're going to show you how to do that through a case. Solution 2, which is really related to working with server-side tracking, is collecting your own first-party data. And first-party data means the data that you collect and you own. And you do that with consent of the user. And for example, this is about email addresses, phone numbers, the more stable identifiers that you can collect instead of a cookie. First-party data, third-party data used a lot, also in synonym with the cookies. Actually, they're completely different. So where a first-party cookie and a third-party cookie say something about who puts the cookie there, so it's a domain. The first-party data and the third-party data say something about who is actually owning the data, who is collecting it, processing it, and making it actionable. For first-party data, that means it is your data. You collect it from your customers. It's individual data that you collect with consent. It's very accurate if you collect it in the right way. You don't share it with, at least not, while it's not hashed or made anonymous. And examples are like the customer email or phone number, purchase history. And then you have third-party data, and this is data that is collected by another party. They don't use this data for themselves, but they actually provide this data back to you to work with, but you don't get it on the same level, so you get aggregated data. It's less accurate and not reliable always, and you actually don't know if the user ever gave permission to collect the data. And then next to third-party data, there's also second-party data. And second-party data is actually the same as first-party data, but it's collected by another party and shared with you in sort of a trusted way. So you combine your data with their data, but you do it in such a way that it remains separated, and you only see where the overlap is. And that data is then sent back to your partner, and your partner can use that, for example, to make an audience for you. Data that you can see there is website activity, social media profiles, or for example, customer feedback. These two data types are the future of our industry, meaning you need to start collecting data yourself, and you need to start looking for partners that collect data in the right way, and close a partnership with them so you can still have a good targeting profile from your users. Finally, there's also zero-party data, not that known, but it's sort of similar as first-party data, but where instead of you collecting it, it's actively provided to you by the user. You still have consent, you still collect it yourself, but the action to share with you is really laying with the user. They are happy to do it and share it with you. Question for you guys, because consent is super critical, and one of the hot topics at this moment, of course, is consent mode version 2, which is mandatory by Google to run your Google campaigns and collect data on their behalf. Who has this set up? Are you all good to go? This is something you can easily fix now, and you should fix now. Takes only 1, maybe 2 hours to fix this, and then you're set to keep running your Google campaigns. We're going to show you how we did this for a number of clients. I will hand over the floor to Bob, and Bob will talk you through some of the cases that we have in this area and see what the impact actually is on the business level. Bob.
Hey, hello guys. I hope you're all enjoying your lunch or your sandwich or your toasty or whatever. So David is more like the strategy guy. I'm the practical guy that gets down there and gets it done. So I'm going to share with you 3 cases that highlight some of the stuff that we're talking about. I'll give you an idea on how to do it, but it's more like a proof of concept to show what you can expect when you can do it. And it has some real anonymous client data. So that's also very interesting for people who are looking for more insight into that. All right, first I want to bust a myth. Actually, there is no client-side tracking. So a lot of you probably have client-side tracking at the moment, which means that somebody visits your website, and then your website passes on this data to Meta, and then with that you can do your ad targeting or your measurement of how well that's going. You see this piece of code here on my view that maybe is known to some of you. So that is the Facebook pixel, right? So Mark asks you to put it on your website, and then he will handle it from there. So actually what's happening is this pixel is really running on the front side of your website. So it's, for example, running in the user's browser, and then it's passing this information directly to Meta. So you are not even seeing the data, right? So it's not it's no party data for you, because you are not even seeing the data. You're just passing it straight to Facebook, for example, and then it's like third-party data for you, and you can ask him like, hey, how are my ads doing, right? So you are just passing on the information, and this is the way it is if you are not doing server-side tracking. So the way to do it, or like the way like doing it this way will become mandatory, because like regulations is making it harder and harder for Meta to get all this information. So you have to pass it to them yourself, because you do want to work with Meta to do ads, for example. So you use your own server and you get in control. So the user visits the website, and the website is running on your server, and then from your server, so like your WordPress or your Shopify, you could even pass the information directly from your WordPress environment, because you own that, it's your server, and then you tell Mark, hey, this guy with this information just bought this. All right, so I actually have a case for this where we implemented this for one of our clients. So we had a client that just had client, and they are staying ahead of the curve. So they're like, hey, we want to do server-side tracking because we know it's coming. It's a B2C client with a high lead value and a medium meta spend. So it's a company that they actually are trying to get in-person meetings in their stores, and they are generating that by planning the appointments on the website. And then if the customer buys something, it's pretty expensive. So these leads can cost us a lot. All right, so when we got started, we had about 48% match rate, meaning that what if I compared what Facebook was saying in the pixel to what I was seeing in the backend, there was about like a 50% mismatch. And like if you would look at this like 4 or 5 years ago, it would have been like 99%, right? Because back then Meta or Facebook was just able to get all your information to get it done, but it has been slowly declining. So the longer you wait, the worse it will get. This client had 0% advanced matching because Zuckerberg wasn't able to get any of any other information from your website or from the cookies, you know. So he's like trying on your website to get everything, but he was not making it work. And the client had one performing campaign, trouble scaling, and very fluctuating results because of the measuring inaccuracy. So this is actually how their Meta account looked like before. This is a 2-month period. So we can see there's one account performing, and then it's bringing in about 30 leads, maybe 60, because of course we're missing half. So we can assume that there are maybe more conversions. But to be honest, that's a bit of a positive outlook on things, because Meta does tend to attribute pretty aggressively. So in reality, maybe it's 50% more at max that this account is doing. Okay, so then, yes, we implemented the server-side tracking for them, and for them we did a pretty lightweight integration. So yeah, I didn't really include it in my slides, but I will tell you. So pretty much what it means is for them we installed a plugin in WordPress that got the information from the forms to a small servlet we ran, and then to Facebook. And this could be something easy, right? You could, for example, do this if your environment allows it, to just make your form talk to Zapier, and then have Zapier talk to Meta. That's how you could do it. For them, it was a bit more difficult. But essentially, that's what you're doing. You're just on the server end that's already handling the form. You're passing it on to Facebook. And after this integration, we had a 95% match rate, 55% advanced matching, and they had multiple performing campaigns, and it went well. Of course, if it would have went badly, I wouldn't have shown this case here. But this is actually something reasonable to expect. Why is this reasonable to expect? Because before they were spending about 20,000 euros a month, generating a lot of clicks and activity, but they weren't sure what's being effective, right? So as you can see, they used to have a lot of campaigns too, so they don't know, is it my awareness layer that's really good? Is it my mid layer that's really good? They just didn't know, because the granularity of data was really low. I mean, if there's only 15 conversions, then it's already really hard to say anything about it statistically. So that also counts for Facebook, of course. So afterwards, we saw the account get better really fast. So like as soon as Meta had enough data, including, for example, the advanced matching, just generally matching the users, being able to piece it all together and figure out who's buying this stuff, it was much easier for Facebook to get us more people who wanted to buy the stuff. And we actually saw the cost per lead went down from 800 to 150 euros. I do have to confess that there was also like 10 or 20% seasonality, so there was also just some lucky timing. But like improving your result by 800% is not luck. That's just doing more with data. I included some screenshots for you so that you can check if your Meta is currently all right. So you can see here that on the right top, you see the event that we're talking about, and you can see that Meta is reporting that you're matching about 44% more because of your server-sided. And down below, what's very important is that you see the event ID. So that's important to take note if you want to implement it yourself, because if you don't send an event ID, so like assign a number to the event that's happening, and the event being, for example, scheduling, then it will be almost impossible for Facebook to figure out which conversions it saw on the front side match which they saw on the back side. So you will get doubling, and your data will become wrong and troubled. Yeah, so the cost of this with us was, for example, about 2,000 euros. So I included this number so that you have an ID on what something like this would cost, and to have an ID on what to implement, like what it would cost for you to implement it. So what we did was we made a zero measurement. So we always make sure that we know what the state was before. For example, Meta only holds data for 30 days. So if you want to look further back, you can't. So before you get started on the work, do a zero measurement so that you can see really clearly what the improvement was. In this case, we had to install some plugins for the multiple forms on the website to send that information to a small servlet we were running. Then we just ran up the servlet and passed this information to Facebook, and then we did the final measurement. So Better quality data means better targeting, as you can see. So the results for this client went up a lot by having, like, so they did something that you are going to have to do anyway, right? So the upcoming year, you will have to implement this because otherwise you won't be able to do any targeting because you would just be running ads like you would do it outside, right? Just put your poster up and then hope somebody buys it. But of course, the added value of advertising online is that you can see who's buying it. And then if you have more data, then Meta runs on algorithms, like they don't know what they're doing, but they just need data and then they can sell more of your stuff. So if you feed it more information, then it will be able to feed you more sales. Don't make business decisions on half of your data. So what we saw for this client, for example, is that they didn't really know what was working for them. So they were just trying stuff, trying to get better without knowing what was better. And the longer you wait, the worse it gets. Okay, so that was the implementation case. Now I have, telling you about what happens if you implement server-sided. And now I will go into an example where I show you what you can actually do with first-party data, because it's not only mandatory, but it's really nice to have the data. So in this case, we have a client that's using basic CRM, so like their email programs, first-party data to find basic information. And this was a client selling condiments direct to consumer, which sounds crazy, but it was in during Corona. So back then, people would buy the stuff they put on their sandwiches online, even. All right. So the process is gather, process, and insights. So for this client specifically, like I picked a simple example for you, right? Because I want you to see that this is something you can do yourself. You can do it in Google Sheets. There's no, it helps to be smart, but you don't have to. So you just gather your product orders and your emails. That's what we gathered. Then we did the processing of the data. In this case, we calculated, among a lot of other things, the time between orders and products clusterings. So we had a priori analysis, which pretty much means taking tally of how often things were ordered together. It's also not hard. And then the insight we got was that there was a fixed retention window and a fixed order groupings, which makes a lot of sense, right? So users that buy salty condiments are most likely to order another salty condiment when their current supply runs out. So this is, of course, a very open door. Nice give. But still, it's something really simple, but if you weren't looking for it, you wouldn't have found it and you wouldn't have been able to make an improvement. So in this case, for this client, we actually, we made a really simple email flow where when the client, like we would just calculate, oh, they bought 4 of our cans of stuff. It's going to run out in about 15 days per can. So in 60 days, we'll send them an email saying, hey, you probably ran out, please buy more because you like this flavor. And then we had the retention rate go up from 15 to 30% because we were able to be in the consumer's mailbox at just the right moment. So that's really simple, right? It makes a lot of sense, but you have to start searching for this stuff or you won't find it. In this specific case, we spent about 3 days on it. So it was, we got the order data to the CRM, which was like, I don't even remember, it was back in COVID, but like one of the bigger emailing services. So we just got the e-commerce data in there. And then from there, we did a retention analysis actually in Google Sheets and a priori analysis also in Google Sheets. And then we built a small, simple tool to enrich the information. So again, we ran a small server, but you could also do this manually to just have one of your interns calculate it every week, or I don't know. But we made a small automation that when you ordered something, it calculated, oh, he got the salty product, so he probably likes salty product. So I will write that in the CRM. And he bought the extra large pack, so he will probably last for 60 days with it. And then that's it. You have your like the value extracted from your first party data that you collected. So more first-party data means more first-party opportunities. You can't see anything with your eyes closed. Data will open doors for you to click in, and more data is more money. So start looking for these things, because they are like when we think about data analysis, we often think that these will be hard things or difficult math, but it is not. It is oftentimes simply finding the obvious. And then oftentimes what you will see is that the correlations for these obvious things are often the strongest. Like the thing that you expect to find, you will find, and it will be true, and then you can extract value from that. All right. Yeah, deze?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, sure. So this is David's part again.
Yeah, thanks, Bob. So as you can see, there's a lot of value in switching to server-side tracking and starting collecting your own data and combining that in creating more value. But it all only works if you start working on unifying your data. And this is a big topic. It means you really focus on getting the data quality up and putting it all together. And this sounds like really hard. And one of the first tools that comes to mind is a client management platform. So a tool that collects data from your customers. However, this is a really advanced pro solution. So it costs quite a lot of money, and it still is very dependent on the data quality that goes in. So if you are really advanced in where you are with your analytics team and your processes, it might be a good step forward and something you should implement this year, if you have not done it yet. However, in a lot of cases, we see that the real progress for partners and for advertisers is not in buying an expensive tool, but in actually setting up the basics. That means that you have a dedicated team working on data. For a small company, that means one person is actually in charge of analytics, making sure that everything is done in the same way, that you have standards, that you have processes, and that these are implemented and actually guarded so that they actually are being used. And often you can actually focus on simple improvements and simple analysis instead of doing the really complicated stuff. Almost all analytics tools now come with data-driven analytics. A lot of you probably still work with last click attribution. Try to switch to data-driven, but do your own small analysis like Bob shown. Export data to Google Sheets, link them together, and with small regression analysis, you can actually already prove a lot of assumptions that you have and experiment, so you can create more value. One of the other challenges that we face, so the reality, we're never going to get back to the old days where you had all the data to you available that you wanted, and you could do some sort of dirty hacking tricks or at least get the data that you needed. Those days are over. They will never come back. And that means you need to work with less data, and you need to start thinking about how you can create more value out of less data. The first three solutions help you with this. The fourth solution that we offer is really start doing your own analysis and thinking about how you can create models that are specific to your needs, and you can create your own insights. This also sounds like something which is maybe hard to do, but once you have the basics in place and the quality of your data is good and all the data is coming in, this is not that hard step to do. And Bob will show you how you can do this.
Yes, so this is a really wild case because I don't know if you guys know what regression analysis is, but it basically means that given a certain set of numbers, you can predict the next number. So for example, if I spend 10 euros on candy, I can get 10 kilograms of candy. And then if you measure this a lot of times, for example, another measurement, you get 18 kilos of candy for 20 euros, you can eventually deduct, hey, if I spend €1 on candy, I can buy about 0.9 or whatever kilograms of candy. But you can do this too, for example, for this client for the ad spend. So the case is improving media buying budgeting by regression analysis. And we had a client, an e-commerce client, which had a high and very varied cross-channels advertising spend. And the fact that it varies, it's important because like with buying the candy, if you would only have information where you spend €1 on candy, you don't know if it gets any cheaper if you spend €10, right? So you would need some variation in that. And also this specific client had a short buying journey. So they sold a product or still do that. When you see the ad, you either think, I need that or I don't, but you don't think for a month if you need it. And this is important because that means for your data that it's easier to do an analysis like this because there's no modeling of the clients being slow. They just buy or not. And so if you are like that, then this analysis will work for you. Before I'm diving into that, I have a question for you guys. So how are you measuring your marketing performance? So if you can put that in the chat. I actually don't know how because I've never been at the other end, but if you don't know how, then you can probably ask it somewhere. So I'm not seeing any answers, but that's all right. The way you are measuring it is probably by looking at the channels, right? So you ask TikTok how it's doing, or you ask Facebook how it's doing, right? And then like pretty much for this client, what we saw that they said is if all our marketeers would speak the truth, we'd make triple the revenue, right? So they had Google Ads. Google Ads was telling them how well are my ads performing? Yes, they are doing very well. Then they had Meta. They were asking, hey, how are my results on Meta? And then Meta was, of course, saying, very good, you need to spend more. And then we had TikTok, and TikTok was like, I have no idea because the TikTok tracking wasn't working so good. So we didn't have a lot of conversions there. I actually made a model from this first to see how well are these channels predicting my revenue, right? So if I spend €1,000 on TikTok this month, 10,000 on Meta, and 5,000 on Google Ads, what will it bring back to me? And the fit of this model was actually negative. So the R squared, so like R squared, if it's 1, it's really, really, really perfect. If it's 0, it's really loose. And if it's negative, then there seems to be like a negative correlation between the numbers. But actually, like we were seeing that the spend we were putting on these channels and what they were saying that they were bringing in, if we looked at that, then we were not able to predict our revenue well. And of course, all our like ad channels, like this company was working with freelancers doing the specific ads. And then they were all like, of course, in the meeting saying, yeah, we chose the attribution that gave the most conversions and we did a lot, right? But they were having a hard time optimizing. They were having a hard time scaling up their spending because sometimes they put in a lot more money and nothing more came out. So again, simple process. We started gathering information, and the information I gathered was the revenue and the spend per channel per month, right? And only we were looking at a small data window of 12 months. So that's not a lot of data, and you might not expect anything from that, but this client kind of got lucky because they had a very varied spend, which we had a lot of diversity in the data points. Then I did a linear regression and a polynomial regression calculation. So just some fitting algorithm. If you Google, you will find them. If you had one of these old calculators you had back in high school, like TI-83, TI-84, I think even they can do it. So you don't even have to be on your computer. There's probably an app for it. And then we got the insights. So I did like looked at the model and then I validated the model. Now the result is, I think, crazy because the resulting model was really, really, really simple because every month for this client, the amount of money that they made from revenue was equal to 22,000 plus 1.5 times Meta spend, plus 4 times the TikTok spend, plus 1 time the Google ad spend and 13 times the influencer spend. So it's really like you can explain this to a child how it works, right? It's really a result that really speaks to you, and it's really simple to interpret. And our conclusions for this client was Meta is lying. Google branded influencers overrepresented. They didn't need that. TikTok is a lot better than its reporting, and influencers have fantastic return on investment. And then poof, we did a Black Friday with the new media buying strategy, which was buy a lot of TikTok. Like pretty much that was the strategy. Just spend a lot of money on TikTok, and then we saw that we were able to double the revenue during Black Friday for this client. Although, as I have noted, the client also had an uplift in conversion rate of 50%. So there also seems to be something changed to the website, which really helped. But then let's say our spending strategy improved 50% of the result. It's still pretty nice. And what's even nicer is that we predicted this revenue. So before we went into Black Friday, we said, hey, we have this model, we're going to spend this much this month, it will bring in this amount of money. And then we were within 5% of that. And our new model actually had an accuracy of 97%. Just to give you an idea, this cost the client, well, actually it was included in their contract. So, but it will cost about 4,000 euros. So 5 of our days, if you do it yourself. I think, like, if you get someone smart on it, maybe you can do it that never has done it before. You should be able to do it in like 2 weeks, because it's not, you can just Google it. It's not rocket science. But what did we do for them? So it was a linear model prediction, a polynomial model. So we tried a more complex model fit, because when I got the results back, I was like, oh, I'm not believing that it's that easy, because I've never seen that before, which is why it's a crazy case. And then I did a bootstrap verification. So we did some modeling to like get some certainty on how certain our model was. And then we pretty much verified the model by giving advice and then seeing the results. So back to our data part. So what we did is we have these third-party data sources telling us how we are doing. And then we check them, because like the only data you can really trust is going to be your own data, because of course Google Ads is going to say your Google Ads are working fine. Of course Meta is going to say your ads are working fantastic, because all of these people are trying to sell you more more ad space. So if they say it's going well, you will buy more. So make sure you check this, because you can't trust them. Your budgeting is probably based on lies. Your marketing performance is less than reported, probably. And the only way to combat this is to get more of your own data, of your own analysis, so that you get back in control. So if you want to stand out, use what you currently have and invest time and resources to gain more insight, and make it simple. So don't start with doing a CMP integration with a big party. Just keep it easy. Just tell somebody, hey, you're going to spend the next the upcoming time, you're going to spend 1 afternoon each week on data and just getting to know more and getting more information. That being said, it's not as free or like fluffy and you can do whatever you want, because Google is going to take away your data. So if you're currently, for example, a business that's running on with most of the inbound coming from ads, then you must do this, because your performance will start degrading faster and faster. Then I have this cheat list on what you can do. So I have do now implement consent mode V2. Google that, do it, or contact us if you need it. We'll do it for about 300 euros or 500 euros. I don't know the exact price, but get in touch, because we'll happily do it for you. Compare your measured results versus real results. So for example, monthly, write down, I sold so many products, and Google, Facebook, and whatever together say they sold so much, and see how that adds up. Do soon, implement server-side tracking. So get that done sooner rather than later, because you will have to someday soon, because then your ads will just stop working. For example, get all your form and product data to your CRM. So that's also an easy one. You probably have some integration in your web shop for this. Just do it. And then for the upcoming year, I like do at least one of these. So for example, do an incrementality test, do a holdout test to figure out. So like a holdout test is, for example, if you think Facebook is not adding any value, just stop spending on Facebook and see what it does to your business, for example. And take one action based on CRM data. So the data you're gathering, find one meaningful thing to do about it and use it, and then you will be on your way. All right, I'm about rounding off now. It's a bit of a technical and long story, so I can imagine you need some more help. So if you want, you can scan this QR code and send a message with your email to my colleague Stein, and then you will, 5 of you, of course, the ones who are most likely to buy something from us, we'll get a data tracking session for half an hour with me or David, so that we can get you going. So if you have any questions, also just send them to Stein, and then he will filter them out to me and David. And then let's do some Q&A. Do you have some questions for me, Max? It's in the Q&A. All right, so I have some questions coming in. Jorg said, does this mean that you have to set a server up yourself? Yes. No, well, okay, so there's 2 ways to go about it. You can just, you are probably already running a server. For example, if you're running WordPress or WooCommerce or Shopify, that's a server, you know, you pay money for it to rent it, and then it's sending your website to people. And they probably have some plugins that do, for example, like what I do for customers is oftentimes when I do a small integration, I just do it directly from WooCommerce. So when somebody orders, I send the information from that server directly to Meta, directly to GA4, and then just be done with it. But if it's a bigger integration where we, for example, want to do page views or be more specific, then you do have to set up a server, like in the traditional sense of hosting some space where a small thing is running. I also really recommend, if you're a bit more technical, Make, which is something we all also run a bit lightweight here. It's like Zapier, but cheaper and better. So there, for example, you can set up a server that when somebody talks to a webhook, you send it to Meta, and then you have your server space for cheap. I hope that answers your question. Sharif says, is the solution a combination of client-side and server-sided tracking? Yeah, so yeah, that's actually a good question. Well, when you install server-side, you always keep on running the client-side, right? So Facebook is trying to extract as much data as possible from the browser, and just let them do that. Like let them figure out their own legislation, how it works. Let them save the information, and even help them, you know, give them the transaction ID so that they know what information that they have, how that relates to your server-side information. So it's a combination of the low quality client-sided information that they are gathering and the high quality first party data you have, because you know exactly it was Peter, he's ordering it to this address, and he bought a red car, like, and then you send that to, for example, Meta, and they will combine it with their data, and then they will be able to sell more red cars to Peter. I'm gonna scroll down. What's the big difference between SST and first-party data pixel with data warehouse? I don't know what SST is.
Server-side track.
So, I'm trying to interpret the question. Yeah, so there isn't necessarily a different, like server-sided tracking makes the data first party. So that's your intention is to, so basically what you're doing is instead of sharing your data with, for example, Facebook, your website is sharing your data with your server that you own. And then that server will collect this information and might share it again with Facebook. But at that moment, it's first party data because your server is running in your space. You are looking at the data, you are being EU compliant in collecting this information, and then you decide to send it. So at that moment, it becomes first party because it's actually at your place. Like it's like when somebody wants something from you and you say, "Oh, come over to my place," and then we can talk about it, and then it's in your house. I hope that makes sense. So like you build, like the trick is to build your data warehousing in your own house so that you own the data warehousing. The trick is to not have your data warehouse be at Mark Zuckerberg's place where he owns it. So that's the difference, or this, like the similarity between server-side tracking and first-party data. All right, these were all the questions. I hope you all had a good time. We will send you this presentation. You can, let's show this once. Yeah, get in touch with one of my colleagues or me or David if you want anything for us, because we would be glad to help. You know, this is a webinar, so we're actually trying to sell something. And if you want to buy one thing from us, then I would recommend getting server-side tracking if you're not doing it yourself, because you will need it upcoming year.